We begin in Canada, where the ruling Liberal Party is projected to win control of the country's next parliament, completing a remarkable turnaround in the polls. Multiple media outlets called the win shortly after national polls closed. The extent of the win and whether the Liberals and Prime Minister Mark Carney will have majority control was still unclear. The opposition Conservative Party was set for a big win just months ago as voters soured on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Donald Trump's tariffs and musings over Canadian annexation quickly changed the Liberals' fortunes, sending them soaring in the polls. DW correspondent Janelle Dumalaon is reporting from Ottawa. Janelle, the ruling Liberal Party has won. What's the mood where you are?
Well, Stephen, I am standing here on the floor of an election watch party being held by the Liberals in downtown Ottawa. And I can tell you that the mood here is obviously jubilant. But I have to say, it was kind of funny that when the CBC, that of course is Canada's public broadcaster, called the race in favor of the Liberals, the crowd here was not so big yet. The doors hadn't been open for that long, as such a very thin cheer went through the crowd, and it ended up sounding a lot more muted than one would expect. But of course now this floor is filling steadily. People here are in a great mood, and of course they're all waiting for Mark Carney to address them. That's expected in around half an hour. Now, but you asked about reactions, and I managed to gather some in the wake of that announcement. So here's what some people here had to say.
I don't think we have those comments, I'm afraid, that video. Let's move on. Janelle, you mentioned that there was some excitement about this. We can hear, obviously, the excitement in the background. Polls showed that the Liberals were up going into this election, so maybe not so much of a surprise, but at the same time, this completes a remarkable comeback for this party. Help explain to our viewers how big a comeback this is.
I mean, such a difference from where they are now compared to where they were previously. If we just look back to January, the resignation of Justin Trudeau amid record low approval ratings from the voters, amid infighting within the Liberal Party, amid also disapproval over Trudeau's handling of immigration and the economy, and then everything changed with regard to this race. It looked for a while there that Conservatives really were poised to take over government. They were polling 20 points ahead of the Liberals, but then Trump came and his annexation threats and his damaging tariff policies against Canada, and the Canadians started to cast about for an anti-Trump figure. And Mark Carney in this race very much cast himself as that figure, the figure that would be able to stand up to Trump, the figure that would be able to lead Canada through economic crises. He pointed to his own record as having led the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England through separate difficult times. But now we're really coming to a place where this former central bank governor, this money man, will now have to put his money where his mouth is.
All right, so lots of questions about the extent of that liberal win and what the next government will look like in the end. You've touched on this, but remind us what the challenges facing the next government will look like.
Well, we've been mentioning Trump's damaging tariff policies all over the place. We are, of course, looking at 25% broad-based tariffs against Canadian goods not covered by the trade agreement of the USMCA. But, of course, Canadians are also looking at other concerns like the cost of living, like housing affordability. Now, Carney has promised lots of things to the Canadian people, lots of things that are meant to help Canadians weather this storm. He's promised, for example, a $2 billion strategic reserve for the auto industry. The auto industry, of course, expected to be especially hard hit by those tariffs. He's also said that all the revenue from counter-tariff measures are going to go to workers. But, the point is really that he has his work cut out for them. Canada is going to be facing a very difficult time, and as as such, the expectations on him and his Liberals are very high.
All right, that's Janelle Dumalaon in Ottawa, where the Liberal Party there is celebrating its win. Thank you very much, Janelle.